Over the past 5 years, Broadcom is up by 467%, and over the past year, they are up just under 75%. And so in today's video, we will figure out if this huge rise in price is justified, and if Broadcom will keep rising over the next few months and years, or if it's unjustified and Broadcom will fall in price. Now jumping to our stock valuation spreadsheet, which by the way you can always download in the link in the description. Right away we can see that the current dividend yield of Broadcom is sitting at 1.23%, and they have a trailing free cash flow payout ratio of 44.84%, which means that they still have about 65% of their free cash flow left when they pay out their dividend, which is a decent amount. Now jumping straight to 9-pillar analysis, we can see that Broadcom gets a rating of 7 out of 9 with 2 pillars in the red. Now let's first have a look at the growth of Broadcom. Broadcom has been growing their revenue at a rate of 16% yearly, their free cash flow at 17.65% yearly, and their net income by almost 60% yearly. Now, if we have a closer look, we can see that indeed the net income has increased from 2.7 billion to 14 billion, while the free cash flow increased from 9.2 billion to 17.6 billion in 2023, and year over year by another 5.8%. So they show some exceptional growth. But now let's address the elephant in the room, and that is the extremely high PE ratio. The 5-year PE ratio is sitting at 32.17, but if we have a closer look, we can see that currently that is sitting at 154.30, which means that investors are paying $154 for a single dollar of Broadcom's earnings. And that is the similar case with the price to free cash flow that is currently sitting at 42.97, not as high as the PE ratio, but it is still higher than the range we would like it to be sitting in. Now jumping back to the 9-pillar analysis, even though Broadcom is currently extremely overvalued compared to their earnings, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like it, they are using this to their advantage and increasing the shares outstanding by about 2.10% yearly. Now if we have a closer look, we can see that over the past 12 trailing months, they increased their shares outstanding by 8.5%. So they are taking advantage of trading expensive and generating the sweet free cash flow. Now regarding the other pillars, we can see that Broadcom has a 5-year profit margin of 73.22%, which is nice. Their consecutive dividend growth is sitting rather high at 13.49%, and their long-term liabilities over the 5-year free cash flow negative dividends is sitting at about 2, which means that they won't have any trouble with paying off debt with the free cash flow they currently generate. But now let's calculate the company's intrinsic value, first using the Graham's formula revised. And here we plug in the 5-year earnings growth estimate at 27.18% yearly and get an intrinsic value of $118.64, which is 50% lower than the current trading price. Now for the second valuation model, we plug in a future growth rate of 14.7% and a discount rate at 8.5% and get an intrinsic value of $150.23. Now when we compare Broadcom's extremely high PE ratio to the PE ratio of its competitors, we get an intrinsic value of $28, which is rather low. But moving to the final valuation model, the dividend discount model, we project a future growth rate of 9%, as I do want to be a little conservative, and using our alternative model, we get an intrinsic value of $180.87. Now for our ultimate valuation, we average out these 4 valuation models and get an intrinsic value. Now say I wanted to remove the multiples valuation, we would get an intrinsic value of $149.91, which is still about 13% lower than the current trading price. And so yes, Broadcom has very nice growth, and compared to the 9-pillar analysis, they are looking as a very decent company, but they are just completely overvalued compared to their earnings and compared to their free cash flow. And we can also see this when we look at the valuation models. So I personally really wouldn't recommend buying Broadcom at its current trading price.